The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. It's just me today. Both of our panelists couldn't be here. One pre-scheduled and one, maybe he'll join us while we're in progress. But I didn't want you to miss another episode of The Secrets of Technology. And I've never done this before. We've just gone solo, but we'll give it a try, see how it works, and if let me know what you think. So let's get right into today's show. Our topic today is an important one. It's about Wi-Fi and your home Wi-Fi networking and how it works. And what do you do when things go wrong, when it isn't working well? And so I really want to get into some of the troubleshooting that normal folks can do. You don't have to be really techie. You don't have to be an expert. Normal folks could do a lot of what I'm about to discuss with you on how to troubleshoot your home Wi-Fi. So, the first thing to realize is if your Wi-Fi feels slow, it might not be your Wi-Fi. That's the problem. There are multiple components to your internet connection from your home out to the internet. There is, internet is that connection from your home to your internet service provider, your internet provider, whether it's Comcast or another cable company or Verizon or Google Fi, or there's a whole bunch of ones, local and national, but that it's whoever you're paying your bill to every month for your internet connection to your home. So that's the internet. Wi-Fi is the wireless link inside your home. So and you can also have wired internet in your home. So we'll get into that a little bit, but I think the most common type of internet access people are getting these days is wireless. It's to their phone, to their laptop, to their tablets. Those are all wireless devices pretty much. And so most people are using Wi-Fi in their home. So what kind of problems do people have with their Wi-Fi? So sometimes it works great when they're near the router. All right. Step back. A router is the device that is like it's the radio that communicates with your devices. It's the Wi-Fi machine. There's also a modem, which is what brings the internet into your house from the internet provider. And it usually either includes the router inside it, so it's all one device. That's most common these days, I think. Or there are two devices, a router and the modem. All right. So sometimes your Wi-Fi works great when you're near the router, but as you get further from it in your home, it gets worse, and your signal drops off, and it doesn't work as well. Maybe certain rooms are dead zones where you don't get any internet, or really, really bad internet. Or maybe it works fine, like at 3 a.m. Maybe you have little kids and you're up in the middle of the night. Who knows why you're up at 3 a.m. on the internet, but no judgment. And then it's awful at 7 p.m., early in the evening, which could be a Wi-Fi problem. That could also be an internet problem, your internet provider. 7 p.m. is a around a time when a lot of people, they're home, they finish dinner, they're getting their evening started, they're online, streaming, gaming, whatever, social media, that sort of thing. So it could be that as well. So those are clues, but those are generally clues that it's your Wi-Fi. So if it works great near the router, but bad as you get further from it, or if you have dead zones in your house, or it works fine early morning, but terrible in the evening. Here are some clues that maybe it might be your internet provider. If even wired devices are slow. So if it's something that's connected through a cable directly to the modem or the router, and because usually that's like a desktop computer or a TV streaming device, it's connected to your TV like a streaming box or something like that. If even wired it's slow, that sounds like your internet provider. If there's you're doing video calls and there are ping or latency spikes, which I will get into what that is later, so don't worry. I'm not going to just throw that at you. If the modem from your internet provider has lights on it, and so those lights aren't just random, not just blinky random lights. They mean things, and those can tell you that there's a certain issue going on. If they turn yellow or red, or if they blink in a certain lights are blinking or off or on, or this will be a manual from your internet provider on their website that explains it. We'll get into some of that. Or of course, the easy way to do it is to run a speed test that will show that you have low download speeds even when you're connected via a wire. So those are the indicators if it might be your internet provider. If in generally speaking, if the wired connection is slow, then it's not your Wi-Fi, because wired connection is not using the Wi-Fi. It's not on the radios. It's not going through the air. So what do? Well, step one is to do just that. Test a wired connection if possible. If you have a device like a computer that can plug directly into the router or the modem router combo, even a laptop, a lot of laptops have Ethernet connections, or like I have a MacBook, it only has USB-C ports, but I have an adapter that lets me plug in an Ethernet cable in other devices. So you could do that. But if you have a desktop computer, that's even better. The desktop computers almost always have Ethernet connectors these days. So plug it in and then run a speed test. And I'll put links in the show notes for some websites that you can go to run speed tests. Probably the most popular one is called Speed Test by Ookla, which sounds like a Klingon, but it's actually this website, OOKLA, speedtest.net. And they're really good. And what they do is they download large files to your computer and then upload them, and then they do it several times, and it tests the speed and gives you an average speed of the test. So that's one way to do it. That gives you some raw numbers. And also, you can also test, can you stream video reliably? Can you watch a Netflix video without it pausing and jumping, or a YouTube video or something else like that? So if the wired is unreliable or slow, then it's either a modem or an internet provider issue. And like, it could be something on the pole outside. It could be something at the internet provider's office. It could be your modem. And generally speaking, if your modem is 4 or 5 years old, and we'll get into this again later, it probably needs to be replaced. 4 or 5 years is probably about on the edge of still being acceptable, because the technology advances so quickly and is updated that 4 or 5 years ago, that modem, those modem. In fact, I got to check my modem, because it might, as I think about it, like 4 or 5 years ago, it's like 2022, 2021. I think I got this modem about that. So I'm going to have to check into it with my internet provider and say, hey, do I have the latest thing? All right. So that's step one. Step two, run a speed test the right way. So you run a wired speed test. Now run a Wi-Fi or wireless speed test, like on your phone via an app. There is a speed test app from Ookla, or on a computer wirelessly, like a laptop or that desktop computer, but you've now disconnected the wired Ethernet, and now you're just using the wireless connection to the router. And so, but ideally you want to run it on something that's portable. So that's why a phone would be good, or a laptop, because you want to run 3 tests. One test when you're right near the router on the Wi-Fi. One test when you're far from the router, like even on the other side of the house, as far inside your house as you can get on the Wi-Fi. And then you also want to make sure you've run that wired version of it on a computer, so that you can get that baseline of what is the speed coming into your house, and then what is the speed over the Wi-Fi. Now, keep in mind, wireless networking is slower than your internet, what your internet provider gives you. Like, I think a lot of ones these days, it's like they'll promise 500 megabits per second down and up, or 250. Most Wi-Fi is like, I think it maxes at 400 now. Like it's always lower. So why do you end up getting the bigger connection. Well, why do you pay for all that extra 500, 900, 1,000 megabits per second up and down? Well, for your wired connections, those are much faster. And because everyone has multiple devices, so you need a bigger pipe to, a bigger pipe lets all that data move through more smoothly. That's an oversimplification, but it's good enough for what we're talking about. So you want to run those 3 tests, and then you want to do them at a bad time, like in the evening, and then at a good time, like late at night or early in the morning. So what you're trying to do is collect a lot of data about how is it working, and what you will find perhaps is that the Wi-Fi works better at a different time of day, or if it works if it's just as bad at all times of day. Okay, that tells you it's probably the Wi-Fi. If it's good near the router but far away it's really bad. That means maybe it could be your router is in the wrong place. Like your house is, it could be like, so in my house, my router is on it's not central in the house. It's on one side of the house, way on one side. And so, but I don't have a very big house. So, on the other side of the house, if we just had the one router, and I'll get into what I have that helps keep the internet going well. But if I had just the one router, by the time I get to the other side of the house, I'm barely getting any connection. The weaker the radio signal, the worse the connection becomes. And some houses are made of different materials that block radio signals. I used to live in a 19th century sea captain's home in Salem, Massachusetts, where they used lathe and plaster. So it was like chicken wire and plaster in the walls. And that's basically a Faraday cage. Basically, it's designed to block signals. It's not designed to block signals. A Faraday cage is. But that's essentially what it was doing, is it was absorbing all the radio energy. And so back in those days, I had an old Linksys WRT 45G router, those classics. And I had to have that thing in the room with me in order to get any signal in any connection. So it was it was tough. That was a tough house to get internet in and around in. So you may live in an old house that blocks radio signals. This will be part of your issue. Okay, so, or you live in a giant house and you have, your router's in the basement in a far corner, and, the top floor far side of the house may as well be Siberia compared to that. So so we'll talk about some solutions you can do with that. Now, I talked about latency and pings earlier. So you want to measure not just the speed of your connection, but the latency. So what is latency? It's how long it takes for your device to get a response from the computer on the far side of the internet you're connecting to. So if I go to google.com and my computer sends a signal, "Hey Google," how long does it take for my computer to get a signal back from Google saying what? and it's usually measured in milliseconds. So that's latency. Then there's something called jitter, which is a little esoteric, but it's how much the delay changes from moment to moment. So whether it's uneven delay. So if it's 10 milliseconds, delay constantly, every time my computer sends a ping to Google, I get a ping back in 10 milliseconds. But if it's 10 this time, then 30, then 50, then 5, then 30, then 100, that's jitter. Okay. So you could say latency is how long, if I'm going for a drive, the GPS says this is how long the drive will take. So it'll take an hour to get there. But jitter is if while I'm driving, the GPS keeps changing the estimated time. It's going to be an hour and a half. It's going to be 40 minutes. It's going to be 90. Well, hour and a half is 90 minutes. It's 65 minutes. Like if it keeps changing, that's jitter. Okay. So when you have dropouts on, like if you're doing a Zoom call and things are dropping out or they're buffering, like things are freezing and then going, that's usually latency or jitter, not download speed. Okay, that's something holding up they called packets. The internet traffic is divided into packets of data, and so that's packet loss or packets being slowed down. I don't want to get too much into the details because I'm trying to keep this higher level for the layperson. So you want to measure your latency. So there's another speed test called fast.com, and it's actually from Netflix. You can imagine Netflix. It's very important for Netflix that it can help customers measure not just the speed of their downloads, but the latency, because latency affects their experience of streamed video. And so you can go to fast.com and get a speed test, but then there's a more info button where it will also give you the latency. The Ookla speed test also does latency too as well. So you could do either one of them. But the fast.com, I think, has a easier presentation, a better presentation for most folks. Now, you can also get latency by doing a ping test. If you go to a command line, like in the Mac's terminal, or you download a ping app, you can get your latency there. That's you don't have to do that. If you know how to do it, it's fine. But certainly the website's probably good enough for most folks. So what am I looking for when I'm looking for these numbers? So let me give you some ranges. If the latency is 0 to 20 milliseconds, that's excellent. The server's probably in the room with you. It's that fast. That's almost unheard of. 20 to 40 milliseconds, that's good. That's normal. If you get 20 to 40 milliseconds, you're sitting pretty. 40 to 70, it's acceptable, but may feel laggy at times. Slightly laggy. Things might be video calls will feel generally fine, but gaming may feel mushy, like it's not as responsive. You hit a button, or if you do an online gaming and you move your character and it doesn't move, or you're trying to aim at something and you miss all the time, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's 40 to 70. 70 to 120 milliseconds, that's problematic. Video calls start getting jittery. They start dropping and buffering. 100 to 200 milliseconds, that's bad. That's just straight up bad. And anything over 200 is just broken. That's just, you call your internet provider, something's really bad, or replace your Wi-Fi router or something, but something's really, really off. So jitter, so 0 to 10 milliseconds, jitter is good. 10 to 30 is concerning, and anything over 30 is bad. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. If those numbers are in the good range, then we're sitting pretty. We're doing okay. If they're in the bad range, we need to start looking at things like, is the router need to be replaced? Is the modem working okay? So those are some issues we need to look at. And then another question we need to think about is bands, radio bands. So as you all know, like when you have a radio, like an AM/FM radio, you tune it to a certain channel. 98.5 The Rock, or whatever it is. And so that channel is the radio frequency or the radio band. I'm really oversimplifying. I know people are yelling at their podcast player right now, but I'm trying to make it simple. Wi-Fi generally right now operates in one of three bands: 2.4 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz, 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, or 6 gigahertz. So they all have pros and cons, and most right now routers will do 2.4 and 5, the combined. You can set your routers to do multiple or one or whatever. So why would you choose different ones? Here are the pros and cons. 2.4 gigahertz. It goes further through walls. That's a pro. So like it's not held up by stuff in between as much, but it's slower. The band is more crowded. So things like microwave ovens operate on 2.4 gigahertz. So if you are standing near your microwave oven and trying to use your device while the oven's operating, that may be why you're having trouble connecting. So there's more interference in the 2.4 gigahertz band. Back in the old days when you had portable phones with the big antenna on it, like the house phone, those operated in 2.4 gigahertz. And it was like infamous of knocking people off the internet. But so 2.4 gigahertz is very common in smart home devices, and also for reaching longer distance and on older devices. That was the original band for Wi-Fi. So then there's 5 gigahertz. That's so the pros is it's fast. It's faster than 2.4 gigahertz. It's reliable. It is the best overall when you're balancing out all the pros and cons. But the cons is it doesn't punch through walls as well as 2.4 gigahertz does. So if you have several walls between you and another room, a far side of the house, then you may not be getting your internet connection that you want to be getting over there on 5 gigahertz that you could get on 2.4. But it's trade-offs, right? Because you're trading off speed and other things like that. So just that's the difference there. The 6 gigahertz is a relatively new band available. The pro is that it's the cleanest and fastest of all of them, the least interference, and it's got the fastest speed. The con is it's also got the shortest range. So if you want to have high performance but you don't have, but it's like one big room, like you're just in one room, your den or your home office, and you want the best Wi-Fi speed possible in that limited area, 6 gigahertz would be your thing. But practically speaking, use 5 gigahertz unless it won't reach. There are also some use cases where you could on one router you can have a 2.4 gigahertz network and a 5 gigahertz network, and you could put all your, like, say, your smart home devices on the 2.4 gigahertz and reserve the 5 gigahertz for your phones and computers and stuff. That's kind of goes beyond the scope of what we're talking about now, just so you know. So what do you do if your Wi-Fi is broken, right? I've described how to test and all that sort of stuff. So what do you do? So here are the top 7 fixes that actually can work to help fix your Wi-Fi. And I'm going to rank them in order of what to try first. So to do these in order. So the first thing to do is reboot your router and modem properly. And what I mean by that is if the router and modem are 2 different devices, then you're going to turn them both off for at least 60 seconds. 60 seconds is a way of making sure that all the power is off. Sometimes things, you turn a button, the light goes off. That doesn't necessarily mean it's off yet. Okay, just so you know. So 60 seconds is a good rule of thumb. Then you turn the modem on first. Let that power all the way up. Wait till all the lights are blinking green or whatever it is that they look like when they're on running properly. Then you turn on your router and you let that come all the way up. And you got to be patient. Sometimes these take a while. When I have to reboot my system, it's just like, it's like the watching molasses flow uphill in the winter. It is slow. And I've got everyone in my house going, why isn't the internet working? But you got to be patient. You let it get going. If they're the same device, then just turn it off for 60 seconds and then turn it back on. That's fine. If everything works the way it should, if everything is cured, you are good to go. Go buy a lottery ticket. You're in luck. The next thing to try, if that doesn't work, is to move the router. Even if you move it 6 feet, that can make a big difference, especially if what you're experiencing is bad connection in a distant part of the house. Say your router, like I said, my router's in this office that I'm sitting in right now, and it's in a far corner. They drilled the hole for the internet in this far corner of the house, and that's where it has to live, okay? But I could, if I had to, move it across the room, so I could move it 10 feet to the other side of the room, and that way it'll be a little closer to the rest of the house. That might be just enough if your house is small enough like mine is. But that might be the thing. Or if it's in the basement, if you move it up 1 floor, even if that would be possible. So even, 6 feet can make a difference. So try moving the router to someplace else if you can, if you've got a long enough cable to get it there. Now, the next thing you could do is to, and this is a thing that might cost you something, is to stop using, if you are still using, the combination device that your internet provider gave you, the modem/router device that they gave you when you signed up. Instead, turn off the Wi-Fi that's built into that and get a third-party Wi-Fi device in Amazon or wherever you can, Micro Center, any, retailer, Best Buy, whatever, a router device that you get, and you keep the modem in what's called bridge mode, and then you have a dedicated Wi-Fi router. So you've turned off the Wi-Fi in the router. In the modem, and then you have a separate device. Why do we say that? Because the combination devices, these commodity devices that the internet providers hand out, are not always the best quality. I mean, you know how that is. They're trying to maximize profit. In general, if you get a decent device from Eero, TP-Link, there's a handful of modem manufacturers, and we really probably should do. We'll probably do another show at some point where we talk about the different modems, and we've talked about them before, and we should probably talk about them again. Because again, like I said, the technology is constantly changing. Unify is on it looks amazing. I haven't really tested it or seen it. I've looked it up and seen it, and it looks amazing. It might be a little complicated for most folks, but so there are some really good brands out there. So that might be your thing, is if you get your own router that's dedicated. Another option to do is, like I said before, if your router and modem or both are ancient, more than 4 or 5 years old, replace them. The equipment that comes from your internet provider, you might be able to get that for free if you just call them and say, hey, I've got this old modem router. Is there a way to upgrade it? They might charge a little bit. They might send it to you free. Sometimes they have a lease. In some cases, it's in their best interest because they want to get old equipment off of their system so that they don't have to keep supporting it. They want to clear that stuff out. So they want to, and then they want to upsell you to faster speeds and stuff like that. So you got to be wary of that. So upgrading your equipment is another option. Use Ethernet, a wired connection, for certain key devices, like your streaming TV device, your set-top box, like a Roku or an Apple TV, or gaming consoles, your Xbox, your PlayStation, your Switch, your desktop PCs. If it's a box computer that you're not moving it anywhere, you might as well plug the cable into it for the internet, because it's only going to be the best speed possible. That's best possible speed. And it also takes some of the burden off of the Wi-Fi. They're not having to deliver streaming to another device out there. So that can only help as well. Now, most routers out there, the Wi-Fi routers only have a few ports, 2 or 3, but you can buy something called a switch, Ethernet switch, for cheap money on Amazon. I have one that has like 32 ports that I got for, so I can plug in 32 different things. And trust me, I have a lot of things plugged into it. But you can buy that, and all that does is spread out it allows you to plug more things. It's like a USB hub. All right. So use Ethernet for your key devices. Another thing you can do is you can add an access point. An access point is a wired connection to the router. What does that mean? So there's access points and extenders or repeaters. An access point, the best thing to do is if you can plug an Ethernet cable into your router and then run it to another sort of Wi-Fi radio device called an access point elsewhere in the house, that means you now have basically 2 different radio stations with the same amount of power, give or take. But this is, for illustration purposes, let's say the same amount of power in those 2 places. Now, an extender or repeater, what it does is it takes the radio signal. It's not physically connected to the router, so it's trying to take the weak signal that it's getting somewhere, far from the router, and retransmit it out again. As you can tell from the way I talk about it, that's not so great. So now there's also another kind of router system out there, which is very common these days. It's called a mesh network. And the way the mesh networks is, it can be wired, but even if you don't have them wired, it does. It has these base stations, and it kind of works like the access point one, or even the repeater, where it takes the signal and retransmits and receives it out. The thing is with these, any of these, you don't want to put the extra nodes where there's no internet. You want to put it where the internet is good still, so that it can transmit it to the area where there's no internet, right? Because it doesn't make the internet magically appear. You have to, now if you have it wired with what's called a backhaul, if you have them wired, like you run a wire through the attic or something like that, then you can put the other end in a dead zone because it's not having to try to catch the radio signal from the router. So just keep that in mind. Mesh systems are reliable. They're good now. There's so many of them out there. I've seen the advice: if you have multiple floors, if you can't run Ethernet, or if your dead zones are far from the router, then that's when you want to use mesh. But I honestly, I have a single floor house. It's not huge, but I really still prefer the mesh, just because running a cable to the other end of the house wasn't an option really for us for various reasons. So. Mesh is not magic. When your internet itself is slow, or if your nodes are too far apart, or if you're trying to use wireless backhaul through many walls, it's not gonna magically make things better. So just keep that in mind. And then another thing to think about is splitting. This is a little bit of a more advanced tactic. Splitting your SSIDs. What's an SSID? SSID just means it's your network. It's the network within a network. It's the network name. When you go onto the Wi-Fi menu on your computer and you're choosing the name of the Wi-Fi, that's the SSID, that name. And what's behind that is usually one of the radios. Usually it's the 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz are the same SSID, and you're leaving it up to the computer and the router to negotiate which one to use and when. But a lot of routers will let you split the SSIDs so that you can have one network name for the 2.4 gigahertz and one network name for the 5 gigahertz. And like I said earlier, you can put all your smart home and other older devices on the 2.4 gigahertz and keep put all your brand new, like your laptops, your phones, your tablets on the 5 gigahertz. It separates them out. They're not, it lets the networks stay relatively clean from each other and keeps them separated. That was a lot. Okay. We went through all the troubleshooting steps and the possible ways you could fix it. There's lots more to be said. We could come back and revisit this topic, talk about buffering, what causes it. We could talk about common myths about Wi-Fi internet connections and the truth behind them. We could talk about routers and mesh systems that you might want to think about, choose in the future. So if you have specific questions about networking, about home Wi-Fi and problems or other things like that, write in, let us know, technology@sqpn.com, or join our Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. Join the Secrets of Technology channel there and, ask away. We'll have a conversation. We'll include it in future episodes. All right. So with that said, let's move on to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Sam K., Ruslan P., James F., Yvonne B., and Brandon B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So we do have a few headlines I'd like to discuss. The first one just came out this week. Apple announced that it's going to base its foundation models on Google's Gemini. So what does this mean for the average folks? So as most people know, Apple made a big deal like, oh, we're coming out with Apple Intelligence. It's going to be great. Oh, your phone is going to be able to do all these cool things. And then it never happened. They had to admit that, no, the S lady was not up to the task, that they couldn't get it working, in-house, that it's delayed. And so what everyone kind of thought was going to happen has happened, which is that Apple went out and they basically bought a white box version of somebody else's AI engine. So what does it mean for us? it doesn't. So you're not going to say "Okay, Google" to your phone instead of "Hey, S lady." You're going to, so that's not what it's going to be. It's like it's as if a Ford truck. You had a Ford truck, and your Ford engine wasn't working well, and you went out and you went to Hyundai and said, "Hey," or Honda and said, "Hey, give me an engine," and you put a Honda engine in it. And so now it's just a Honda engine but you still looks like you have a Ford truck and you operate your Ford truck just as you always did. Ford owners, please forgive me for even mentioning that idea. And I know the practical reality is that you can't just drop the manufacturer's engine in your car. I get that. Anyway, but that's essentially what's going on here is they're dropping a new engine in. You won't see Google. You won't, you won't see Gemini branding. It will just be the S lady, hopefully doing the S lady things that they promised you would do. As far as privacy goes, Apple and Google have said that Google will have no access to your private data. This will be running on Apple's proprietary private cloud compute servers, so there won't be any of the worries about the Google training their model on your information or doing any of that nonsense, any of the stuff that a lot of Apple users don't want to have happen. So that's good news. It means that your Apple devices, if you're an Apple user, are going to get better. It's good news for Android folks too, I think, because it means that Google is getting, that this Gemini engine is going to be running on more and more devices. And even if they're not going to be harvesting the data, they're going to be getting experience. It's going to get a workout. It's going to be, they're getting funding from Apple to develop it even more and make it better. So Gemini could only get better from this, which I think is great. When can we see it? When will this actually end up in our phones? I wouldn't expect it anytime really soon. Maybe by the summer, by the WWDC event, we'll start to see initial things. I would expect that at the Worldwide Developers Conference in June, Apple will have some announcements and we'll be demonstrating the actual capabilities that we're going to get in the next fall. So I think, practically speaking, I would imagine next fall is the earliest, unless you're a beta tester, but next fall is the earliest that most people will see the effects of the Google Gemini device, foundation model in their phones, in other Apple devices. So that's the first headline. The second headline, Meta admits to Instagram password reset mess, denies a data leak. So what happened? Folks may have, if you have an Instagram account, you may have received emails over the weekend or earlier this week, asking if you had requested a reset of your Instagram password. Hopefully you said no. Even if you didn't, you're probably okay. So what happened? Malwarebytes, they make the Malwarebytes software, the virus detection software. They claimed last week that to quote their statement, cyber criminals stole the sensitive information of 17.5 million Instagram accounts, including usernames, physical addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, and more. And that they claimed that meant that they could request a password reset emails and perhaps breach your account. Instagram followed up by saying, no, we fixed an issue that let an outside party request password reset emails for some people, but there was no breach of their systems. Your Instagram accounts are secure. You can just ignore the emails. There's nothing to. So basically, there was some way where someone could, if they knew, if they had the email addresses for a bunch of Instagram users, and that sort of stuff is just out there. Like you can buy it on the dark web, all that sort of stuff. Then they found a way to request password reset emails, but those password reset emails just go to the person in question. So if they don't have access to your email account, they can't do anything with it. It's just an annoyance. So nothing really to worry about there. Now, the last is an interesting little story. I kind of ran across this on the website called wastedrive.com or I'm sorry, wastedive.com. It's for the waste management industry, of all things. So, but what they had an article about, with as we talked about last week, when the year turns, lots of new laws come into effect. And there were some new laws relating to recycling and e-waste that came into effect. I thought were some interesting ones. And they highlight some new laws in Vermont, Illinois, Oregon, Colorado, Washington State. The ones in Vermont, Illinois, and Oregon have to do with they're expanding the what they call extended producer responsibilities for certain rechargeable batteries. So there are, if you're a company that makes a device that has batteries in it, or you make batteries, you have certain responsibilities under these laws to accept them back for recycling, to make sure they don't end up in landfills, essentially. And so this new laws, like in Vermont, they've extended the types of batteries that are covered by the law. Rechargeable batteries, devices in which batteries are easily removable, and some medium format primary batteries, which I'm not exactly sure what that is. The existing law covered household batteries, just regular like AA's and AAA's and 9 volts and that sort of thing. So they're really kind of growing this. They also call for including larger format batteries that weigh between 4.4 and 25 pounds, such as those found in electric bikes. So these programs are getting bigger. Illinois has a similar new law for medium format and portable batteries. For example, sellers and distributors now have to have a battery recycling program in place for larger batteries for electric bikes and scooters, along with portable batteries like those from your power tools, like your drill here. Like if you go to Lowe's, you go to Home Depot. I know around here in Massachusetts, they have by the door, by the entrance, they have a place to put old batteries, like from your old power tools. So those will have to grow to accommodate more. So it's really interesting. And then in Colorado and Washington, they have new right to repair laws in place. Colorado's is pretty extensive. They've banned some practice called parts pairing, where it makes sure that electronics can only operate with manufacturer approved parts or software. So like a lot of times you could get, they're commodities, like just like a battery or I don't know, capacitor, resistor, say. Probably, I think these laws are for other things than that. But let's just say, simple components. I should be able to just use those if they're the same, if they operate the same. But some manufacturers make it so that you can't use it unless it comes from them, where they sell it at a markup at a higher price. It also bans practices that prevent independent repair providers from installing enabling an otherwise functional replacement part, or displaying misleading alerts or warnings about unidentified parts. If a part's a part, if it's safe, if it's usable, then you should be able to use it. That's without being scared by the manufacturer that, oh, you're going to damage your stuff, or you could get hurt. I get that. And then Washington also has a new right to repair law that calls for wider access to parts and tools and information, that sort of thing. All right, so those are our headlines, and I think it's time to move on to my pick of the week. Since I'm the only one here, I will go ahead and give you my pick of the week. One of the things that's been happening is there's a piece of software that I really like called Mac Updater, and I've used it for a number of years. And what it does is it keeps track of all the software on your computer and keeps it up to date. And it lets you know, oh, it needs to be updated, and will let you, it would let you click a button and would update it right there. Or even if you couldn't do it by itself, it would let you open up the app and update it there and that sort of thing. Well, the folks who make Updater have recently, or last year, let it be known that they're not going to be updating it anymore, that it has become too unwieldy. the way that they ran it. It was, it was a business decision. So what do we do? So there are a number of other folks have come forward to help fill the gap. What is it? Clean My Mac. That's what I'm trying to think. The name Clean My Mac from MacPaw is a kind of a do-it-all utility. It does a whole bunch of things, but it has an app updater built in. It's all right. It doesn't catch everything, but it works fine. But there are a couple others out there, and one I've been testing that I've kind of like is one called Updatist. Update. So like the word update with ST on the end. Updatist. And it's okay. It's pretty good. It catches things. It's a bit technical. It's being constantly updated. I think I had like 2 or 3 updates on it just today. The developer is very responsive. He's working hard to make it better. It uses some technical means to find the updates and to run them, and it's not the most user-friendly interface yet. It still needs some polishing. It needs to hide some of the harder bits behind some interface, prettiness at some point, so that it's more usable by more people. So that. But but it's still updating. It's very promising. It's in beta, but the pricing is reasonable. It's $10 for an individual. Then that gives you it's a one-time purchase. It gives you 3 computers, 3 Macs. If you want to get a household one that covers 10 Macs, that's $20. And again, that's forever. It's a one-time price. There are other updater programs out there. There's one called Latest, Latest, that is similar. They all kind of rely on similar mechanisms for checking. Latest is free, so that's good. I don't know that it catches as much as Updatist, but right now, I mean, try them out. Give them all a test. And if you find other ones out there, give it a try. Right now we're in a time where we just need to find someone's working on the next great version of a software updater, and it will eventually emerge and probably be the one that everyone wants to go to. But in the meantime, give them a try. I think it's important to me. For me, I find it important to make sure that my software is up to date, that I'm running the latest versions, because the latest versions fix bugs and close security holes and all that sort of stuff. It's not just about new features. So I think from a troubleshooting perspective, it's always good to make sure you're running the latest software. So Updatist is my pick this week, but also Latest is another one that I'm going to recommend that you check out and try. All right. So that's it for us this time. We'd love to know what you thought of anything I had to tell you today. Anything I talked about especially with Wi-Fi troubleshooting. And if you have any questions, again, let us know by sending us an email to technology@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC328. And of course, you can find previous episodes at sqpn.com/technology. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Tech in Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the StarQuest YouTube channel, youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should make sure to hit the bell to get notifications after you subscribe. We really appreciate it if you write a review in Apple Podcasts or any podcast directory that lets you give ratings or reviews, and share the podcast with your friends. We think this is valuable, helpful information, and I think it helps us and helps you whenever you recommend us to someone else. And that's the number one way we get new listeners anyway. So until next time, thank you for joining me in sharing these secrets of technology. Once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Sacred Art. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at starquest.fm/art.